Guys, today we'll be solving lead code number 2450, minimum common value. This is an easy problem on lead code and it is also the daily problem for today. Now, what is the input of the question and what does the question itself mean? So if you're given two arrays, so let's consider array A and let's consider another array B, and we are told that array A contains 1, 2, 3. I'm taking the example from lead code over here, and 2, 4. The minimum common value in between these two arrays is 2, right? Minimum common value being the element that can be found in both arrays, and it has to be minimum. So even if we had 1, 2, 3 and let's say 2, 3, the answer will still be 2 because it needs to be the minimum. So the first point at which we detect that both of them are equal. So equal, then return, right? And what are we told about these arrays? Well, we are told that A is sorted, right, in an increasing order, and B is also sorted. And if you have watched any of my videos before, or if you know anything about two pointers, what do we know about the fact that if it is sorted, what kind of approach should we be taking? Well, it should boil down to two approaches: binary search or two pointers. And the one I'll talk about here is the two pointers approach, because this is the one that is actually relevant to the question. You can do a binary search if I'm not wrong. It is tagged as one of those, but the one I'll be using is two pointers. It is the quickest and the easiest way to understand this question. Okay, so for those who don't know about two pointers, we just keep a pointer over here, let's call it J, and we keep a pointer over here, I. And since we're told that it is sorted, right? Since we're told that it is sorted, every time we increase I or we increase J, we move on to a higher element, right? Keep in mind, a higher element, right? So now, what I'll do is pretty much like an example of how the code will work, and then I'll just write out the code because the code itself is pretty simple. Okay, so let's consider this A, let's consider this B. Let's see, AI, right? Is it equals to AJ? 1 and 2, are they equal? No, right? So what do? We see that 1, right? 1 is less than 2, right? This is true, 1 is less than 2. And what did I just say about moving the pointers? Well, if we move a pointer ahead, we will move on to the next higher value, right? In this case, I is the one that is lacking, right? Sorry, this was supposed to be, but I is the one that's lacking, right? And so what do? Well, we move I now, right? So let's write out a case over here. AI, right? If it is less than B and the jth index, then we will move our I up. Okay, now let's move on to the next I, so 2, and let's compare it with BJ. 2 is equals to 2, that's correct, right? So as soon as we see the first ever thing come true, we will immediately return that value, and it can be either of them, but we just do nums on I, or like AI, right? It's the same thing. Now the third case, right? And it's not really in this example over here, but let's consider the third case where AI is actually greater than B is J. Okay, if it is greater, then what do? Well, since J is the one that's lacking, then J plus equals to 1 in this scenario. And this way we've covered the three cases: equals to, less than, and greater than. Alright, and it's pretty much that. In the question itself, all you have to do is initialize it to 0 and only run it when both of them are able to traverse, right? Because, well, you need common values, so you don't need one value, you need common, and you need them in both. Right, we have this loop over here, And like I said, if nums 1 I is equals to the j, then return right. It can be either of them, that's completely fine, both of them are equal. Then our second case, right, nums 1 I is the one that's lacking and it's less than j. And then what do we do? Well, increase j, increase I, sorry. And then else, this covers the greater than case, by the way, and j plus equals 1. If you never found anything, then just return -1. That's what they have told us to do. If you find no common value, then return 1. Let that be outside the while loop. There you go. And that's pretty much it for this question. Just this.